Blessings, folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Hitstreak. I'm your man, Nick Hyder. And folks, I got an extra special treat joining me in the Hit Lab today. He literally flew here today all the way from Toronto, Canada, folks. Check it out. You know him as the Rolls Royce of fitness business coaching. Folks, he's the host of the Vince Del Monte Show. He's the founder and CEO of the Figure Fit Pro Mastermind and Del Monte Fitness Services. Folks, give it up for my dude, Vince Del Monte. Vince, how we doing today, baby?
Doing good, Nick. Dude, I love the studio, man. This place is phenomenal. You did a phenomenal job here, man. Great work. I'm honored to be here.
Well, dude, I absolutely appreciate. That's a great compliment coming from you. You know what I'm saying? Dude, you ready to rock this thing?
Yeah, let's make it happen, man.
All right. Well, dude, I'm so first of all, I'm excited to have you here. I actually met you, I guess it was earlier this year. I got invited to a great little mastermind you were having at your spot that's not far from where I live in Owensville, Tennessee, right?
Yep.
And I got to say, first of all, it was a great room, so we're going to talk about the value of your network and proximity and all those things. But when you sat down and you led that group, you said some things that I have notes in my phone, and I'm going to read them to you in just a little bit, and you don't know that, right? So there was some things that you said that, I don't know, you're a very brilliant, critical thinker, right? And so getting right into it here, to grow your business to the next stages, you're actually doing a form of some downsizing. All right? Talk me through that a little bit, because that technically, does that make sense? You're going to show us how.
Yeah. I mean, it's the paradox of progress, right? You're growing in one area of your life, but you're going backwards in another area. And our revenues were skyrocketing. We were doing $5-6 million a year. I had 4 closers, 7 coaches, 4 setters. I don't know how much I was taking home, but I was so stressed out. I was so emotionally dysregulated because I had bit off way more than I could handle. When we hit the pinnacle in revenue in my company, I didn't know I was a couple months out from my wife asking to leave me.
Got it.
She didn't really ask me. She told me, you need to go get some help. And unfortunately, I said one of the worst things you could say. And I said, I don't need help. And I said some other things I should have never said, which I didn't mean. But she said, this is the first time you've ever been honest. And that was her reality, that I didn't love her and I didn't love the kids. And that's how disconnected I was from myself and from my wife and from my kids of 12 years. And that's when I realized I'm not actually growing. I got all this money, but I'm actually not growing.
That's a great thing, especially, being an associate fitness. Clint Bruce, former Navy SEAL, Clint Bruce, I heard him say one time in a keynote, he said, count what counts, measure what matters. Right. So, and I've said a lot of times in here, we're focused on success, and a lot of the milestones or markers of success are just revenue or dollars. Okay. But that's just one part of it. Right. That's just one part of it. And it sounds like to me, when you said that, your business is at its peak, but at home, it's probably at its lowest. You figured out you're measuring the wrong things, right? Or you're not measuring everything you should be measuring. Right. So, all right, hindsight's 20/20. All right. But before you talk about what you're doing differently, if you could do it differently back then, how would you have did it? What'd you learn?
The crazy thing is I knew what to say. And through my entire marriage, I always said family first. I was the guy that, even told her, I'm doing this for the family, but I was a fucking liar. Yeah. I was a liar. I'm like, hey, I'll be done at 4:30. I go up at 5 o'clock. Hey, things are going to slow down. Things never slow down. Hey, this is a big month. You guys got to trust me, support me. It wasn't just one more month. And I was constantly lying. And after a while, somebody can only take up with that for so much. So
even though the lies weren't necessarily intentional though, right? Like, look, I've been guilty of the same thing. I'm like, I'll be home at 6 and then stuff happens and I show up, I go home at 8. I've been there. Yeah.
And that's what I did though. I did a lot of defending. I defended it by saying, I'm doing this for the family. And the family didn't need all that. Since this whole separation, I've had to downsize. You've been to the home. We built that beautiful dream home in Franklin, just a couple of minutes from here. And that house was built through the pandemic. That was a home that we were supposed to move into and restart.
It's beautiful, by the way.
Yeah, it was a dream. We built a dream home on 2 acres overlooking hills, and beyond my wildest imagination. And that house is now up for sale because we are not moving here as a family. And my kids like love that house. And obviously, you know, it's a house at the end of the day, but like that meant so much. And that house is going to be sold because I wasn't able to manage my pace. I was obsessed with getting to the next level, and it had nothing to do with needing more money. It really was trying to keep up with my buddies.
Yeah.
It was just literally unresolved trauma that I never dealt with my whole life. And entrepreneurship became a great Band-Aid to create an identity around achieving success, fame, and money. And it forced me not to have to connect with myself or to other people because I was getting all this validation from the outside as opposed to getting it from the inside. And this is all the stuff that I've decoded over the last 2 years of trying to figure out how the hell did I get here at the age of 42. I'm 44 now, and trying to figure out what ladder I climbed up. And I climbed up the wrong ladder. And again, you know, it happens to all of us.
Yeah.
But I'm watching it happen more and more and more. And that's why I'm now in this process of trying to come up with a new philosophy towards business. And my mantra is bigger, bigger, bigger. Like I had a TV show called Live Large TV. It was all about living large, going bigger, go big, go home. If you're not going big, you're selling out, you're lazy, you're not fulfilling your full potential. That was the belief set I bought into. But everybody else who actually mattered, who'd actually be at my funeral, who actually needed me the most, they were suffering.
Got it. Okay.
So then I realized, shit, this isn't working. And that was this whole, like, it's been 2 years and I'm still just scratching the surface of like accepting that this isn't what I want. And I thought it was, and I had to maybe experience it to see that I actually want a simple business. I actually want more profits. I actually want to be more connected with my clients. I actually like coaching. I actually don't want to have massive, massive rooms of people. Those are all things I thought I wanted. I actually want to have more peace in my life. And the whole concept of peace was like, you're settling, you know, you're young, you got to go, you got to get your team, your wife, your kids on board. Like you're building a, financial wall for the family. And I bought into all that, realizing that really what they wanted was me to be present with them. And the kids actually, I'm so connected to them now. I asked them, which house is your favorite? They do like the Franklin house way more. But we've been in 4 different houses the last 2 years. They said, we like the one with the trampoline in the backyard. And it was the smallest house. We went from an 8,000 square foot mansion, beautiful home, freaking pool oasis in the background, to an 1,800 square foot Airbnb in Toronto. And they like that house the most because there's a trampoline.
Yeah.
And the kid, because you play with us on the trampoline.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that really put things in perspective for me.
Yeah. Time is the only currency that we're constantly investing that we don't know the current balance of.
Right.
Yeah, man. And it's, at the end of the day, it's the most valuable currency, and it's, as a dad myself, and I can remember, I'm 44 this year as well. And it's funny though, I feel like I was my son's age like yesterday, so like, it's so cool. And I believe my dad was the same way, when he was raising me. Like, I know what my son's thinking before he's thinking it. I even like when he feels a certain way or certain things happen, I know how he feels because I'm like, I remember that. I remember that feeling. And there's, I understand what you're talking about, because when we built when we started building the empire that we have now, it started out as an insurance agency first. Yep. And, because when we started the insurance agency, we had already sold and got out of everything else and lost everything, or I lost everything. And I always, growing up, my grandmothers never really knew, like, if something happened to grandfathers, how much money was in the bank, how to even access the bank, how to pay a utility bill. My mom was the same way. So I always wanted my wife, like, to know what was going on. That was just the one change, generational change we wanted to make. But by doing that and getting her involved, all of a sudden, it gave us the ability to kind of dream together a little bit. So all the business decisions that we've made, if we ever did get into a situation where, like we do all the time, where we're stretched a little too thin, or, it's just not working, we got to make some adapt. They call them growing pains for a reason. Yeah. Okay. It hurts to grow. But it was easier for us because it was easy to remind each other, we made this choice together.
Yeah.
Right. We made this choice together. And, you know, looking back, you know, again, what would you, if you could go back 6-7 years, what would be that place like in a movie when you could go back in time and say, I'm going to change this one moment?
Oh yeah.
What would be yours?
Couple things. I would redefine success, and I'd actually like truly redefine what success looks like, what it feels like specifically. I learned from one of my first therapists, do you know what your emotional desired end state is? I'm like, say that again. What?
Yeah.
and I'm like, what's success? She's like, success isn't a feeling. And she's like, a feeling, something you actually feel. I'm like, I didn't even know what a feeling was. I couldn't even think of a feel. What's a feeling? And then I realized what I actually wanted was peace. And she said, have you figured out what number would help you? Just to talk about your business for now. What number would give you peace? Mm-hmm. And I told her what we were currently doing. She says, does that not give you peace? I'm like, actually, it's more than sufficient. So why are we trying to accumulate more?
Man.
And I didn't even think of like, me and my wife never in 12 years actually sat down and came up with a budget. We never actually sat down and said, what do we both want? We never actually sat down and said, how much money do we need each month? It was just, you know, going through all this, you know, motion, all these motions. We had all this like dysfunctional communication that prevented us from connecting, and all we did was swept it under the rug.
Yeah.
And we just got busier and busier, built bigger houses, went on more trips, just like, hey, look, more date nights. And it never treated the root issue that me and her did not have a deep, connected, intimate relationship. And it was because of one thing. We didn't know how to be vulnerable with each other. I couldn't share stuff with her without, you know, she would find something and then she would say something back, then I'd get defensive. So we never connected. And there were so many fights in the marriage where I should have stopped and said, hey, we have some serious issues.
Right.
There were some serious blowouts that should have been like, we need to go get help.
Yeah.
And we just never stopped and actually attended this.
Gotcha. So basically facing your problems head on is what you're saying, you know?
Yeah.
Face to face.
And figuring out how to keep the main thing. I said it, but I never actually did any of the work.
Yeah.
We didn't get therapists. We had a lot of hard conversations, but they didn't actually lead to like breakthroughs. And I didn't wake up until this happened, until I lost something. And that's the thing with dudes, right? We kind of need to get hit with a sledgehammer before we realize like, oh crap, it's too late.
Yeah.
And I just took her for granted. I took my family for granted. I took everything for granted,
man,
until it was too late.
Well, first of all, it takes an unbelievable amount of courage because like, you know, what most people would do is they would come and sit in that chair and we'd have this conversation. They'd tell about all the good parts. They'd tell about all the great things. When at the end of the day, you know, the one word, I've had so many amazing people sit in, you know, hundreds of amazing people sit across from me in that chair. The most common word amongst all guests, amongst all the verticals that have been there is being authentic and authenticity, right? Which is basically just being real.
Yeah. And I think that's the key to the next round of business. And I believe like even when you're looking at business, I tell my students authenticity is the new funnel, because most people are looking for success out there, right? You know, you're one funnel away. We all know that's BS. You're not one funnel away from being successful, right? You're not one mastermind away. You're not one tactic, one landing page. Success is all the inner game.
That's right.
And I was always looking outside for something to come, you know, essentially save me, to help me. I didn't realize that there was a lot of work on the inside that I had to do. And until I actually was, you know, to your comment, like men sit here and they offend, they're good. I had a therapist call me out and she said, yeah, there's a lot of icing on the cake, but at the base of it is a pile of shit.
Oh man, that's powerful.
And you haven't looked at the pile of shit. And until you actually look at the dark side of you and you're and you know, I grew up in a Christian home as well. My dad was a pastor for 19 years. I grew up in the church, and the church is horrible at this. They don't talk about the dark stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you got great pastors out there, amazing pastors, but when was the last time you heard your pastor talk about some dark stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe in a private, maybe in a, you know, closed door, maybe they do, they've got their inner circle of men, but like in the church, it's like, does this guy ever falter? And I never faced all my dark stuff because there's a lot of shame. And there's a lot of guilt and there's a lot of embarrassment and things. So I felt that this is just a weight that I have to carry. So that's why like authenticity is like, that's what people are craving for more than ever. And I honestly think like the internet is getting harder and harder. I don't know if you saw, Perry Belcher had a great article just recently, a whole essay on this, and how like even the top marketers in the space are having a harder time because you're trying to cut through the noise of all this artificial intelligence, all these bots. It's just it's noise everywhere. So what's the only thing that's going to cut through the noise? It's going to be authenticity. And people are sick and tired of people talking about the peak. They want to hear people talk about the pit of hell. That's why I never talked about the pit of hell. And people say, Vince, are you depressed? I'm like, I'm just talking about a dark side of my life that has been transformative.
Yeah.
Right. I used to always just talk about the nice things, but this is the stuff people connect with because this is where people live 80-90% of the time. And this is why a lot of coaches aren't cutting through the noise because they're painting a picture of everything being great.
You know, Jesus had a group of guys called disciples, and the message to them was to, you know, he basically educated them and he said, go.
Yeah.
Go. And, you know, the reason that's important is because basically he's telling them to go where the people are. Go where people are. You have to go where they're at. So if they're in hell, you got to show them what hell looks like and how you're working on getting out.
Yeah. And even with Christians too, like Christians are saved. That means they're going to have eternal salvation. But I see most Christians living in hell on earth now because they're not facing their demons and they're not talking about their dark side. And they're living in a prison because they won't face the truth. And I think the last 2 years, one of the big things is I've just had to get honest about what I actually want. And I actually do want more simplicity in my life. And that to me was like scary to admit because I built my identity around having one of the most successful muscle building businesses. I was one of the first fitness YouTubers. I had one of the first fitness business coaching programs. I had the biggest fitness business coaching program. So when your numbers start to dwindle, you know, you have, 300 members in one program and the group's getting smaller and your identity is attached to how big that program is. You're terrified of talking about this because they're thinking, is Vince going out of business? Is he, can I hire this guy? And I realized my freaking whole identity is based on what people think of me. That has no sense of security or peace. And that was an issue because I'm 44 too. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I'm not getting any younger. When am I going to deal with this stuff? Am I going to be dealing with this when I'm 54?
Yeah.
Still trying to impress people. So this is where I'm like, I have to start to do the work.
I want to thank all of our loyal fans that spread across all 50 states and 14 different countries. It's absolutely amazing. Folks, help us keep spreading the word, right? Share your favorite episodes with friends and make sure that you are liking and subscribing to the Hitstreak on all digital platforms. Thanks again, and we look forward to more.
Man, there's like literally so much to unpack. And one of the first things that I heard you say in there, and this is important because, as I have a lot of friends that are people that I consider mentors are pastors. And, there's a thing called pastoral care. Like basically what we're talking about is mentors need new mentors.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel kind of like, this has been like the thesis of your life for the last couple of years because you were the mentor, you know what I'm saying? And I'm sure you had people that you looked up to, but it took me a while for me to say it's okay. It's not a sign of weakness to ask for help or to need, like I grew to this place with the help of other people. Why would I think I'm going to grow to the next place without the help of other people? You know what I mean? So like it just you kind of don't realize how you got to where you're at. You know?
It's interesting because I love my mentors. I would take I had some of the best mentors of like dozens of mentors. I might have had like one or two that were waste of money kind of thing, but overall very positive experience with mentorship. And I'm the kind of guy that I consider myself sophisticated in the sense that I go into a coaching relationship knowing it's my responsibility to get something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I go to the coach that does not offer a guarantee because I know that coach understands success and he understands he can't guarantee me anything. So I would never hire a coach as a money back guarantee. That's a coach who's got probably a lot of unsophisticated people in their coaching program, right? Because they're all looking for somebody to do something for them.
Yeah.
So I always knew that going into a coaching program is my responsibility to extract the value. Even if it's the worst coaching program in the world, I'd still make my money back and I wouldn't even say anything bad about it. I would just, hey, I got my gem. I extracted what I did because that was on me. So I teach my students the same thing. And I think what I discovered with a lot of my mentors who helped me get to my peak in revenue was that my success was built on modeling what they did, but their success was built on hiding a lot of their insecurities, if that makes sense. So their identity was built on a lot of their insecurities, and they wanted to have, a 10 million, 50 million, $100 million business. So I felt like that's what I needed to do.
Yeah.
Now, a new mentor that I'm looking at and really attracted to is somebody who used to do $2 million a year and his profits were like 10, 20%. He had a big team, small margins, and he had all the accolades. He was getting all the awards. He was the testimonial guy for a lot of other people's, programs, and he was perceived successful, but he wasn't happy. Extremely overweight, disconnected with his family, not doing the stuff he loved. And he realized this isn't the model I want. And I watched him downsize everything to closing the doors, not taking on any clients for almost a year, fixing retention, keeping all the members in. And then within 2 years, I believe he still did $2 million in the year, but with 90% profit margins.
That's it. Yeah.
And I'm like, when you ask, about growing, I'm like, the growth this guy had wasn't in top line revenue, but it was in actually growing and changing his mindset. Hey, I don't need more leads. I need to take care of the leads I currently have. I don't need more clients. I need to take care of the clients I currently have and keep them on board. It was that's a growth. That's a different type of growth. He wasn't settling. He was growing in a way that was different. And now the guy works, I think 4 hours a day, maybe less. There's 4 hours a week, but he's got like the 4 hour work week. Like he's literally the face of like the 4 hour work week.
Yeah.
And we all joked about that. Like, that's not possible. What a joke. But this guy, it is possible.
That's the ultimate goal in starting any business, right?
I think it is. But then we get so far away from that and our business no longer serves us and we become a servant of our business. And that's where I felt like even in the process of downsizing and simplifying, I still feel like I'm a slave to my business. And this is the journey that I'm on right now. And if I feel like that, how do my clients feel? So I'm in a process of really trying to simplify, redesign, and adapt to this new economy where I think people really want more simplicity, more peace, more profits, more predictability, and they want to get back to their business being fun.
When you invest money, it's not you don't come up with the strategy and then you never revisit it again. Like, it's always a moving target. It's always small adjustments, small incremental adjustments, and you take some hits, you throw some punches. But overall, over the course of time, it grows. Why would we seriously, why would we think that time would be any different? Right. And that's the thing is when we make those commitments to our business, I've been guilty of it too. It's like, I made this commitment and I'm going to finish it. I'm a man of my word and blah, 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 so we do that. And then, all the little things change and, your kid makes the team and now all of a sudden they've got practices and stuff. So all of a sudden, all the other people in your life, their time and needs are different. So you have to tweak just like you do your money. It's a moving target. And we will, a lot of times us guys will, we'll give grace to the money, but not give grace to the time when it comes time to, hit that moving target type thing.
Yeah. No, I think it's important just, understand that rich line is always moving. And I think you really need to spend time thinking about, like, what do you want?
Yeah.
Like, what a great question. What do you want?
Mm-hmm.
And I think most people don't know. I think a lot of people know what they don't want. I think if you ask somebody, what do you want? They always start to say what they don't want. And I said, I didn't ask you what you don't want. I said, what do you want?
Yeah.
Most people can't do it. And then I ask, why do you want that? That stumps them even further.
Yeah.
What feelings would that give you? What's getting in the way to getting those things? And I think those are simple questions that will help you strip out all the noise and all the stuff that doesn't matter. And I think growth really does come down to not what to do, but what not to do. And to just strip away everything that is not who you actually are. And to get to the core of your being. And it's not like even becoming the next version of you. It's like actually becoming more of who you've always been, right? We were always created perfect in the image of God, right? In Garden of Eden. And then we, got the woman got deceived by the serpent, and we, didn't defend her, and we listened to the serpent and thought we could do things better. And next thing you know, we're carrying all these new feelings of guilt and shame, and we've lost what we originally were.
Okay.
We lost it. And
That's
it's kind of getting back to what we were originally designed to do, which was to love and to expand and to connect, and to build and to create.
Yeah. That's right. I mean, come on, man. Like, it's, at the end of the day, and we used to teach this when we were teaching people how to sell. Like, if any time, an objection or a question asked of you, if they ask you a question and you don't immediately know the answer, you weren't prepared. If you had to think about it, then you didn't prepare well enough, because you should have known that question was coming, right? And like, and it used to happen to me all the time when people would be just literally like, you go to an event, not even really thinking about like what my goals were for this event. I need to meet this many people. I need to talk to that person. Like, yeah, I'm there. How do I know I did a good job when I leave? And then, but the most common question you get is first of all, how you doing? Right. And then, what do you do?
Right.
And like, so I can't tell you, hundreds of times back in the day, I used to be like, well, I didn't even know. Right. So if I don't know what it is exactly what I do, then I don't know why I do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So what am I actually doing every day? What am I getting up to accomplish?
Absolutely. Yeah. I know you have something about, you have a little cool thing where, like, what do you do with the one word answer?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, I think I saw you do that on a talk, at Brad Lee's event. And I thought that was really genius, because like, what do I do in one single word? And, do I save people? Do I change people? Do I transform people? Like, just getting down to that one word.
Yeah.
I think yours was faith, right?
Faith, which is it started out as confidence, and we just went ahead and it evolved into faith, because at the end of the day, there, confidence and faith, right. I believe one feeds the other, you know, in both directions. That was a brand builders thing. So the first time when I first started working with brand builders, they asked me basically 3 questions. One, it was, what one word problem do you solve? And I was like, I don't know. Right.
One word problem that you solve. That was the question. That was it. Yeah.
Yeah. What's one word problem you solve? And I was like, man, I don't know. I got to think about that. And then the other thing they asked is, and then do you have a statement that positions you in the market about the one problem that you solve?
That's great.
Right. And I was like, nope, don't have that. And then now this is the most important question. They said, now break down all the things that you do. Let's map out where you spend the majority of your time. And I wasn't even aware of where I was spending time. Like, I found out in the first call with brand builders with Jeremy Weber that I was spending 70% of the time on the place where I made like 10% of my revenue. Right. So I wasn't even a good investor in time.
Right.
So those 3 things, basically what they said is, Nick, you need help with your critical thinking. Right. Because the critical thinking is the fundamentals of everything else that we're doing. It's the foundation we're building up from.
Yeah. I think my word would be belief.
Yeah.
It's funny because my brother did a speech for me at my wedding. This is 14 years ago, but he said that the number one thing I help people do is believe that it's possible. Because I've always done things that my family were like, you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. So I helped them believe. I didn't even know that's what I was doing. I'm like, yeah, that is what I do. I help people, do the impossible. I did it with skinny guys who wanted to build muscle, and then I helped trainers quit their job and make money online. And now I think my mission is to help entrepreneurs realize you can have a business that is profit rich, has predictability and peace, and doesn't have to be chaotic.
Yeah.
And you don't have to live in this sea of franticness. So I think, but I need to embody that. I'm on that. That's what I'm working on myself.
Yeah.
You can't lead what you don't live.
So
that's what I'm working on.
Let's take this back. Let's circle back around to what we started the conversation with. All right. So, because, we're talking about brand builders ask me where I spend the time and so on and so forth. But like you mentioned before, a lot of times your family was telling you can't do this and you can't do that. All right. So I used to talk about this a lot when we were recruiting insurance agents, because like one of the most common questions, if I found somebody I liked and I would make them an offer, they always wanted to go home and discuss it with somebody at home first. If they were young, they wanted to discuss it with parents. If they were older, they might want to discuss it with their spouse or wife. And what we figured out was the ones that we let go they always came back with a decline on the offer.
Of course, yeah.
And so, but what we figured out was like, so all right, so I finally got one person to. I asked him like, well, what did you went home excited and talked to one person and all that disappeared? So what was it that they actually asked you? All right, and they told me what that was, and it was like, and what was your response? And their response was, well, I didn't know the answer. All right, so all right, that person that you went to talk to was actually trying to help and defend you. They were trying to keep you from getting hurt. And when you went home excited about something that you didn't know all the details was, that's their natural response, which is to protect you. Right? When if you had have opened the statement with, hey, I'm really excited about this. I don't know all the details, but what I need from you is support.
Yeah.
Their response and their questions might have been totally different. They might have said, hey man, yeah, you need to go and be excited about this, but here's the questions you need to follow up with tomorrow to make sure that you know that you're 100% about that.
Yeah.
And circling back to you, if you had just did that, if you could have did that with your wife when you were building your things, would that have changed the total dynamic of where we're sitting today? Maybe.
I think so. One thing I forgot to, leave out, I would have had to do something drastic in my business. I would have had to put the brakes on. Like I was asleep. Like I was in slumber. I was sedating. When we had our third kid, I was probably drinking a bottle of wine a night for like 3 years straight, gained like 30 pounds. I was jacked up on caffeine. I was on TRT. I was on all the chemicals. So like I didn't realize that I was so sedated, running from something, probably from like connecting, because if I connected with her to actually have what I wanted, but my identity was so wrapped up in getting validation from my work that I didn't even know where to start. I think there was one thing I didn't say. Despite growing up in a Christian home and being a follower of Jesus, we were not living that lifestyle in the home. We went to church. I was not leading us in prayer. I was not biblically anchored. I wouldn't say I was demonstrating Christ's love. We weren't plugged into, any Bible studies. I think the extent of our faith was going to church and listening to worship music. But
you got to apply that.
We were not surrendered to God's ways. And, I think I did not lead our family. And I think looking back, I think I was scared to do that because it would have shown that I actually cared for her. And I had this, I kind of knew it intuitively, but I could never articulate it. It's crazy how that can go on for over 12 years. And now I'm clear that that's what I was afraid of doing. If I had led my family, that might have shown that I actually cared. And then that would have actually given me what I really wanted, which was a deep connected relationship. But that would have risked my identity, which is being a successful businessman.
Well, it's important to know that everybody in your life that is the closest to you is there. One of the ways that they support you is to help protect you, right? And have you been clear? Have you communicated to those people what you actually need from them to do that successfully? You know what I mean? And that's so check this out. When we shoot these episodes, it's no secret that we shoot them in advance. And we don't always air them in the same order in which we shoot them. So when this episode comes out, the Christmas episode this year will have not aired yet, but we've already shot it. All right. But here's something we did on that episode. Now I'd like to do it a second time today if you do it with me. I had Pastor Josh say a prayer on the podcast, right? So check this out. As we make the shift in our conversation to what you're doing and how you're going to lead other people to make these changes in their life, dude, you want to lead us in a little prayer and just pray for these people that we're talking to today?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So this will be the second prayer, even though it's the first time anybody's heard it publicly. I don't know why we hadn't done it 160 episodes. I haven't prayed on here. What are we doing?
Yeah.
So you want to lead us in a prayer right here for all the people that's listening to us today?
Yeah.
Come on, and then we'll get into the fun parts about all the application and
all right,
change.
Well, close your eyes and bow your head unless you're driving at home. And dear Heavenly Father, we just are grateful today that we have a Father in heaven who knows us by name and who loves us, not for who we could be or should be, but because we're your chosen children. And we just want to thank you, Lord, for pursuing us, whatever it takes to get our attention, even if it's painful. Lord, you already know the desires of every single person's heart who are listening to this episode right now. And I just encourage each one of them to continue to prioritize their relationship with you and to know that you're a God of love and forgiveness and grace and compassion and understanding and wisdom, and that they can always come back to you and that they can always restart, and that you would work in their life in a supernatural way that shows how much you love them, and that they don't need to prove themselves with what they do and how much they have, and with lies, but with just vulnerability and a desire to serve you, Lord. I pray for everybody here that they would align their life with your will, and just be aware that they guard themselves against the voices of the culture that are going to steer them away from a life that you've called each of us to experience, which is one of abundance and of love, and one that is one of service. And we pray for these things in your holy name. Amen.
That gets a hit for sure, baby. That was beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for that.
The Hitstreak is powered by our partners at HitLab Creative Studios. Whether it's launching your brand new podcast, rebranding your current podcast, or taking advantage of any of their other content packages specifically for your social media needs, the HitLab is a one-stop shop for you. Visit hitlabstudio.com for more.
All right. So you are courageously talking about all the ways in which you're not perfect and how you don't have it all figured out, but you're figuring it out.
Right.
All right. So you are just like every other man out there, me included, right? So let's talk about, you've talked about realization. You've talked about facing those problems, and now you're on the other side making those changes. It's, what does life look like now?
Yeah.
Or what's life going to look like now, right? So talk to me. So first of all, a lot of people struggle with addictions. I mean, literally, it could just be freaking caffeine, dude.
Yeah.
But again, when you have everything has to be taken in the proper dosages, and too much of anything is probably too much of anything. So when it comes to caffeine, alcohol,
I mean, there's everything you got.
TRT, porn, even.
Yeah, porn. I mean, even scrolling. I think that the 3 S's. It's sex, scrolling, and sugar. I mean, alcohol's a sugar.
Yeah.
Right. Scrolling on your social media. Dopamine. Vices such as chemicals. Caffeine is probably one of the biggest ones. I was addicted to it, but I think what I had one of my mentors say is, like, if you want to truly awaken, you need to free yourself from all the chemicals. You can't lead a society to freedom if you're addicted to the chemicals of the society. And all these things are just, again, they're escapes. They're really forms of numbing and to keep you asleep, so that you don't have to face, like, okay, why do I need to get jacked up on caffeine? Why do I need to get jacked up on alcohol? Like, what is it doing for me? And when you just even think about it practically, we all know it makes you feel better. I said, well, why? It makes me feel better. So why don't you feel better? Like, because we never had those things at the beginning of time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and coming off, I've been off caffeine for over 16 months now.
Wow.
I should say June, July, maybe longer. I came off TRT last summer. Alcohol, I cut about 90%, 95%. Sugar's a tough one. I came off porn over 18 months ago, put Covenant Eyes on all my devices, all my kids' devices, laptop, phone, haven't looked at anything. And it's insane. Like the process of starting to just, there's so many times where I'm just bored. And I'm like, cause porn filled a void of being bored.
Correct.
Or being rejected. I'm feeling lonely. I get rejected. So where was porn? Okay, I'm feeling lonely. Okay, so now I need to replace that emptiness with something else. And you start to like go to parties. I start to realize, why do I want to drink so badly? I realize, my brother joked around, goes, because you have to rely on your personality.
That's funny.
And I'm like, crap, I got to work on my personality. And I'm more fun when I drink because I haven't worked on my personality. And then the TRT, I'm like, my levels aren't bad. They could definitely be better. And, I've got many reasons why. But I just realized that was also filling a void of not feeling big enough, was filling a void of not feeling lean enough. And I wanted to look apart. Yeah. So all of these things were it's all different vices to ultimately lead to some type of validation, because the caffeine helped me produce. Yeah. Far more productive.
Oh yeah.
Right now, like just talking to you, I feel like I've got 4 espressos in me, but I've got nothing. So I'm like, my brain has been rebuilt. Same thing with alcohol. When I cut alcohol, then I didn't need caffeine at all in the morning times, because the caffeine, the alcohol would mess up your sleep. And then even after 7-8 hours sleep, I'd wake up and still be fatigued. I just slept 7-8 hours. Why? Because I got a crappy sleep because of the alcohol. So now I got to get jacked up on caffeine, and this cycle can continue. Yeah. And I couldn't function. I couldn't even go to the gym without a pre-workout. Yeah. I would drive to the gym and I'd turn around and go home to get my pre-workout because I couldn't have an effective workout. So the whole thing, my workouts are suffering, my productivity stuff, my videos are suffering because I'd have pre-workout and then I'd shoot my content and I was all jacked up. I was all frantic energy. And then I realized this is all fake energy. Yeah. I've built a business off of being, I wouldn't say fake, but it was coming from artificial energy. Yeah. And that was when I just asked myself, do I want to keep producing and acquiring from stuff that isn't authentic? And that's when the chemicals, I'm like, I'm going to get rid of the chemicals too. And do I like a scotch? Do I like a beer? Yes. I love it. And, I'll probably occasionally keep those in there.
As a reward for maybe an accomplishment or hitting a goal or a milestone, right?
But it's absolutely. No longer like at the end of the day when I go upstairs, crack open another bottle of wine every night. And it's not like, 2 drinks. It's like, all right, now let's get the shots out. Now let's get the, hard stuff. Like that's what it used to be. So now it's, I'm awake. I feel like I'm actually like experiencing life outside of the matrix. And that's what I felt like I was. I was literally sleeping to the point where I could not, I can't even remember stuff. It was almost like a dream. My first 42 years of life. It was just a haze. Yeah. And now I can see. It's crazy.
The Lord is using you in so many ways. I have a 3-year-old daughter at home. One of our favorite things that she says is she'll look at us and she'll go, put your phone up. Put your phone up. And that's why I love it when she said that, because first of all, I've never one time regretted putting things away and spending time with my wife and kids. Right. I've never met a man that met and accepted Jesus that regretted it either. You know what I'm saying? But I have regretted being at the office too late. Right. I've regretted being on my phone. As a matter of fact, the only time that I truly ever get cranky or miserable to be around is when know that I'm not spending the time with my wife and kids that I should be. I'm not getting, they feed me, you know what I mean? And that is, and I've never had, as a baseball player, I chewed chewing tobacco. In the nightclub business, I smoked cigarettes. I smoked cigars. I've never been, I've drank. I never did any hard drugs or anything, but I've never been addicted to anything. And caffeine, I will catch. It's funny. I'll catch myself starting like, oh, I can't go. Like you said, the pre-workout. I can't work out. I got to go back to my pre-workout. I've been there. It's really easy for me to say, nope, I'm in charge. I don't depend on it. It's a perk, right? And so for me, it's always been really easy to just say, I don't need the coffee. I don't need the caffeine. I don't need the tobacco. I definitely, like, I can tell you the last time that I smoked a cigarette, and I didn't want another one after that. You know what I mean? And we did all that stuff regularly. It was part of the lifestyles that we were living at the time. How, like, so for me, what I'm saying is like, I've never really been dependent on anybody,
right?
Which made it easy for me to not be addicted or dependent upon a vice,
right?
You know, even in the days when I would, look up, porn online or something like that, it's never been hard for me to say no or just stop, right? I'm very lucky. Not everybody can do that. Okay. Talk to me about first of all, was it easy for you?
No.
And then how did you?
The caffeine was the hardest. The first day, because it was early on in my separation, and my brothers were like, dude, like, you're doing too much. Just have a freaking cup of coffee, man. Like, I can't for the first 2 weeks, I had zero drive. I felt like a zombie. I had to just lie down all the time. I told my therapist, who said, you need to come off all these chemicals. And I'm like, why? And she said, I want you to journal how you feel every day for a month. And then you tell me how bad this stuff is. Nothing should make you feel that bad coming off. For a month, I was completely, and she says, and then, okay, now come off alcohol. And I was like, holy crap. Like, why do I crave it? Like, and she said, because you've neglected feeling. You hate feeling. You want to feel busy all the time. And I never learned how to just sit with my feelings and just actually be present. Yeah. And not have to feel productive. Remember, I'm an entrepreneur. Like, I get the people listening to this. I was wired. I had 16-hour days, wake up at 3:55 in the morning. First 3 hours of the day, I was at my desk. I was ultra hyper productive. I loved it. Yeah. But it was a drug.
Yeah. So thinking about it, I do have an addiction, and it's my wife and kids. Like, you know what I mean? I'm addicted to them. And that's an addiction that I want to feed. And, which, but again, what you said something something so powerful. Think about this, folks. If it's something that you rely on in life is so hard to come off that it's miserable if it takes weeks or days to overcome before you can even just resume normal activities.
Yeah.
Can it be healthy? And, I would say that my wife and kids, it would. If for me to come off them, it would. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I don't even want to think about it.
It's your identity.
That's right.
Your identity is, and it's great to be a husband and a father. What a great identity.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is why divorce is so hard for men, and I mean for women too, obviously. But when you marry, it's two souls.
Yeah.
Attaching. And when two souls attach, they were never, ever meant to detach.
Yeah.
Souls were not meant to detach. So when people say, my heart's broken, I'm dying of heartbreak, that's because the soul has been severed.
Yeah.
And it was never meant to be severed. So what's happening now is you have to create this new identity. And that's what I've had to do. Like, even a year and a half later, I just got my blood work done, and I'm at 50 percentile for my testosterone levels, which is, I don't have any symptoms. So he's like, to be honest, you're fine. You don't need to. I asked him, like, straight up, doc, what would you do? He's like, do you have any symptoms? I'm like, no, not really. I'm like, I wouldn't mind being a little bigger and leaner. He's like, that's not a symptom. I'm like, are you experiencing this, or this? I'm like, no. He's like, okay, well, the only reason I would recommend going on TRT at 50 percentile is if you're having symptoms, and I don't really have any symptoms. So anything if I did take, he said, you are low. 50% is, he said, you should be higher.
Yeah.
Like 50 percentile is not good. Like it's basically scoring 50% on an exam.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone knows 50% on an exam is not good.
It's failing. Yeah.
You're failing. Yeah, exactly. But I don't feel, but it's tempting. A year and a half later, I'm like, I'd like to go back on, maybe just, get a bit of an edge, look a little bigger, I'm single now, I'm back on the market, I'm 44, single. It's insane.
What's that like?
Well, I haven't talked about this anywhere, but for the first year I did nothing. I was celibate. I spent the year working on me. And to be honest, for full transparency, I thought we were going to get back together.
Yeah.
And I thought like this wasn't going to get to where it got. So the first year I was working on myself. I was celibate. After about a year, a little less than a year, I got my own place. And now all of a sudden you have 50% of your time to yourself, because we were cohabiting even while we were separated for most of the time.
Yeah.
And then we sold our home. And then after about a year separated, then we got separate places. So I felt like I'm in college again.
Mm-hmm.
So I went on the apps, I went on the Bumble app, and next thing you know, I mean, you could be going out with a different girl every night of the week if you wanted. Yeah. I mean, you could put your setters in there and you could literally have people booking you 2 or 3 dates a night if you wanted. I did not do that. But what I did do was, I did go get sedated on women's praise. And, I'd done a lot of work for a year. So when I went out with women, they're like, you're so calm. You're so safe to be around. You're such a great listener. I mean, you're so connected and you're so deep. And I'm like, what's your other experiences been like? And they would describe these horror shows with other dudes they've gone out with. And they're like, oh, I can't find a guy. Like these guys they're nuts. They're liars. They're cheats. They just want one thing. I'm like, these poor women. I shut it down after a couple months just because, one, it cost a lot of money.
No kidding.
and two, I'm like, it's a distraction.
Yeah.
It was a distraction. And it was interesting, hearing a lot of people's stories. A lot of the girls that I went out with on dates, they were also divorced, separated. So they'd also gone through a lot of pain. So the scary thing is you connect very quickly.
Okay.
Like the emotional connection is almost immediate because you're talking about kids.
Yeah, yeah.
You're talking about like the most intimate conversations, and most of them had already gone through therapy as well. So they had all these interesting insights and had kind of woken up and discovered bad parts of them that they were walking away from. And you're talking about you. So it was, I think it served its purpose. It kind of was a validation boost. I realized like, I'm a great effing catch. I'm bringing a lot to the table. I got nothing to worry about, but it was a form of oxygen to not fully heal. So I cut it out, after I think it lasted for maybe 6 months or so. I went on a good series of dates, met a lot of great girls, but like at the end of the day, what they all heard was like, you're not over your ex.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I talked about her the whole freaking date.
Yeah.
And women can catch on right away, and they're like, you're not over your ex, are you?
That's right.
And one girl that I really liked actually in the area here, strong Christian girl. Can't believe I'm sharing all this with you, but we'll leave all the names out. But she said, what do I have to latch on to with you? Because if this, your ex came back, you'd go work on your marriage, wouldn't you? And I said, yes. And she said, and I honor that. I think that's amazing, but I've got nothing here I got no stability. And she shut it down. Mm-hmm. And this was the girl that also convinced me to put my wedding ring back on. Now we're in like the final divorce phases of signing the papers and stuff. So I took it off. But for a little while, she said, you're a married man. And when she said it with such conviction, I'm like, no, we're separated. She goes, are you divorced? I'm like, no. She says, you're a married man. So I put my ring back on, and it was so weird going out in public with my ring on after almost 2 years of separation, and just realized I'm not available. And she was like, you're not emotionally available. She says, and we hung out for 6 weeks. It was, an intense 6 weeks when I was down here, and it was a great girl, but this girl, like she was a strong Christian girl. And, again, no knock on my wife, at all, but like, I realized I really, really want a godly relationship. Mm-hmm. I want to be equally yoked. I want Christ-centered, and I want a Christ-centered relationship that's biblically anchored. And of all the girls I went out with, those were the ones I was truly like attracted to. And I saw like, here, there's substance, there's foundation here. Yeah. And, we just no longer are a match. Which is a really, really sad thing because there's 3 kids involved. But the dating process helped me realize like what I really, really want. Yeah. And very valuable lesson.
No
Very
kidding.
valuable lesson for
kidding.
you know, if I'm blessed again to meet somebody.
Absolutely.
The Hitstreak is powered by Team Hyder. Team Hyder has been serving you for 11 years and has racked up over 20 national and local awards for excellence in all areas. When it comes to finding the right health plan, we need to consider your family's needs and your family's budget. That's what we do to serve you. To look further and to book an appointment, visit teamhyder.com.
Folks, we're hanging with the Vince Del Monte right here in the Hit Lab. Check him out online at www.callwithvince.ca, on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Vince Del Monte. Vince, I've got to, when it comes to
Nick, that link no longer works, just so
Gotcha.
we don't send anybody to a bad link. Just tell them to hit me up on Instagram
Perfect.
at Vince Del Monte, but just don't want to send anybody to a
that's good.
broken link.
That's good. That's good. As a matter of fact, because you're rebranding and doing all these things, right?
Yes,
So it's
sir.
awesome. Restructuring. So check it out, folks. Catch him out on Facebook, X, and Instagram at Vince Del Monte, right? And you can message him there. That's fantastic. All right, dude. So when I met you, I came and you had just moved. As a matter of fact, your house was still under construction.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm no stranger to that area. I live just down the street from you.
Yeah.
You know, we actually looked in that
Beautiful area.
neighborhood. Yeah, we looked in that neighborhood when it was
love
being
this
built
area.
in 2020.
It's a
And you're
hidden
right.
gem.
Like they're beautiful homes on tiny lots, and then there's yours. It's amazing. And then you got the pool out back, and I just met you. You were kind enough to give us the tour. But we had this mastermind at your home that Nick Alfano brought me to, which was fantastic. There was a lot of great folks in that room, some folks that I've done other things with, guests been on the podcast, so on and so forth. But man, you really were impressive that day. All right. And you said a couple things that I actually wrote down.
This is impressive that you wrote them down.
Absolutely. One of the things
I'm
you
impressed.
said, oh, dude, check this out. Here's a couple things you said. You said hotheads never have cool ideas, right? That was something you said that day. You said that this is one of my favorite ones. The fastest way to grow your audience is to give a voice to your voices. All right.
Oh yeah.
You said a niche is a problem, not a person. Double down on the problem in your marketing.
Yep.
Right.
I got a good one to build off of that too, by the way.
You said retention actually happens on the front end. That was a big one for me because I look back and I'm like, all the folks that it didn't work out with, they didn't have enough skin in the game in the beginning.
Yeah. Didn't set expectations. Yeah.
And then another one you said that day was the best math that you can learn is how to calculate the future cost of your current decisions. This is all in a circle mastermind in your living room.
Yeah. ROI versus COI. Yeah. Cost of inaction. Yeah.
So, all right. So talk to me about you had that mastermind. You didn't know me. You graciously allowed me in your home.
Yeah.
I didn't pay anything to be there.
Yeah.
Right. And so talk to me a little bit about what was all the folks that I'm around that are doing great things. They all take time for those little meetings.
Yeah.
Those little settings. Right. So talk to me about what the purposes are, how you've leveraged those to grow, so on and so forth.
Well, Nick spoke super highly of you, Nick Alfano. So I was impressed and pleasured and excited to meet you as well too. Nick, so lots of Nicks in the room that day.
Yeah.
But I am a product of other people, you know, for real. I was bad in school. I was an average runner, average fitness model. I feel like I'm a decent, good businessman, but not like a Hormozy level businessman. You know what I mean? So I just felt, average.
Yeah.
I've always just felt average. And I'm a product of people, coaching programs, and masterminds. And I'm really good if you just tell me what to do. I just find that if I'm in an environment with, movers and shakers, and I hear ideas, I grab onto them, and I'm kind of naive almost to the point where I just implement. I'm a massive action taker. I think what I just learned early on in those rooms is that people in those rooms think differently, and they act differently, and they embody a whole different being. And when somebody says something to you, let's just use numbers. Everybody gets numbers. If you're making $100K a year and you meet a guy who's making $1 million a year, and he says to you, "Oh, dude, you can have $1 million business." I'm like, "Really?" And that belief, because he's embodying $1 million a year business, rubs off on you. Where can you put a price on that? So I found just one or two right ideas, one or two right relationships can change your life. I'll give you an example. Like when I joined One Mastermind with Bejas Cooling in 2010, I wanted to be a millionaire by the age of 30. And he introduced me to the world of MRR, changed my life, monthly recurring revenue. I'm like, what's that?
Yeah.
He's like, what's when you wake up on the first of the month to $100,000 or $10,000 in your bank account and you can take the month off. I'm like, how does that happen? He goes, well, we build a recurring revenue product. I'm like, how do I do that?
Yeah.
And that's really how I built the bulk of my wealth. Like I had a couple different offers. Maximizer Muscle, it was a $70 a month program. I had over 5,000 people in it. I had a Live Large TV show. I had thousands of people paying $10 a month. I had another offer, Hypertrophy Max, at over 3,000 people at $97 a month. And when I learned this thing called phase building, where you don't just give people the new workout of the month, but it was built around phases. So phase 1 leads to phase 2, leads to phase 3, and all my programs were built around phases. So people didn't look at it, oh, just another workout of the month. This is a 12-month program divided into 12 phases.
Yeah.
So that idea, I got that from Bejas in 2010 at an $18,000 mastermind, and which was like ridiculous in my mind way back at 18. Who pays $18,000 for a mastermind? That's freaking ridiculous. Like that's insane. My parents were like, that's a ridiculous amount of money. $18,000 for a mastermind. But when you think about it, when it helps you make $1 million a year for 14 years straight, doesn't sound so small.
Yeah,
it doesn't sound so big.
That $18,000 didn't seem. They just didn't know what you got from it. The results would come from it, right? So
exactly. So that's what I say when you go to these masterminds. Like you don't know. Like we're exchanging business a year and a half later, right? You know, you're coming on my show. I'm coming on your show. Like you just put yourself in the environments. And you just trust that something good will happen. And that's faith. Like I could go to an event and it could absolutely suck. But guess what? It's not the guy who's running the event's job to make me my ROI. It's my job.
That's right.
It's my job. It's not, even with this, let's say hypothetically the speakers aren't recording right now and this doesn't go out on the air and no one even knows this happened. I would still learn how to monetize this because I would know how to, hype up the fact that I hung out with Nick Heider and we were in this amazing studio together. And this guy does a podcast 5 times a week. And this guy's so consistent on his social media and you guys got to check him out. Like I could elevate my prestige by telling a cool story from this experience, even though nothing came of it, because it's my job to be successful. So I think when you get in those rooms, you meet people with the same mindset. So you start stripping away all those self-limiting beliefs, the fear, the scarcity, the waiting, the worry, all that stuff, because you're around high performers.
So check this out. I think you and I are a lot alike in this, because this is something that it took me a while to figure out. Because again, a lot of times when you go do things, you'll feel a certain way, but you won't necessarily know why you feel that way, right? So like, sometimes you'll be around certain people, that make you feel a certain way. And then you're around other people that don't make you feel the same way. So check this out. For me, doing business with some awesome folks. We'll just use Bradley as an example, and something that we're working on together here in Nashville. So, obviously he's accomplished some things. He's further along in his journey than I am in many places. And he's the lead on the project. So the most common question I ask him is, because I'm good at hitting targets, dude. Hey man, what are our targets? Because I go hit them. That's what I do. You hit targets. All right. But you know what? I'm good at hitting targets. What I'm not as good at is setting targets. And those masterminds are where I find those targets.
Love it.
That proximity, that network is where I find that, because I'm like, every time I'm around certain people, I'm like, they motivate and inspire me. They show me something I haven't seen before.
Right.
And I'm like, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And now I know what the target is.
You're doing a couple posts a day on your social right now, right?
Like 5.
Yeah. So
per platform.
Did someone give you that target?
Brad, yeah. So that's something that I've been working with Brad. So Brad's always Brad, and Brad's like, I'm doing this. Grant or Gary's doing this. So for a long time when he was doing 5, I was doing 3. When he was doing 3 or 4, I was doing 1 or 2.
Got it.
So obviously I'm growing with a purpose, and there's budgets, and I'm not just. I would honestly, I wrote this down yesterday, and this is a slide in my keynote. if it made sense, I would post on every platform that I have every minute of every day. Because why wouldn't I? If I could, if it made sense, right? I would. You know what, Vince? I want to be the only. When you get on your phone
all day long,
I want to be the only person
live all day.
Yeah, that's it. I want to be the only person you see on here 24/7. I want to be the only thing. But
isn't that how Dave Ramsey blew up? Didn't he have a show he went 3 hours a day on? Somebody told me that. Man, he was going for years and years and years. Just like he was on the radio show for like 3 hours a day every day, and like he's a billionaire now. Like. There's something to that.
Well, it's just like anything else. That first of all, when you do something a lot, you get better at it and better and better at it. But people believe things that are not fact all the time, right? So how does that happen? Well, I think what you believe is something that you first trusted, and a lot of times what you trust is just what you've heard the most times from a trustworthy or convincing person,
right?
Even if it's not fact. And I learned that. Going back, a couple of years ago, they were talking about the OJ trial again. And, whether he did it or didn't, a lot of folks think that he did. However, he sure didn't get convicted of that, right? Well, when you ask the jury, well, why didn't you convict him? Out of all the stuff that happened, all the jurors said one thing. Well, the glove didn't fit. That's why we didn't convict him, right? So that was the one thing that Johnny Cochran said in the closing statements more than once. And he said it 3 times in a row, actually. The glove did not fit, the glove did not fit, the glove did not fit. And then that turned into the glove didn't fit, you must acquit, right? So that's all they remembered. And that's why they said they proved him innocent, regardless of what everything else said. And regardless of how they actually felt about it. So like, again, think about the stuff that people believe today that we know is just straight malarkey.
Yeah.
Well, how can they believe that? Well, again, it's been drilled into them so many times, just like, a lot of times you might grow up in the poor middle class, and you can never have that. In the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, growing up, I was told that a lot. We can't afford that.
Yeah.
In Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki says there's one thing that you can do to change your whole paradigm, which is instead replace the word "I can't afford that" with "How can I afford that?"
That's really good.
That one question changes everything.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's interesting when you dig into stories, I guess. They become your facts. And they all come from rules, laws, religion, and experiences.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting thing. You can rewrite all those, but it's hard because those things have given you something. My therapist described them as survival mechanisms.
Which is basically the purpose of your brain. It's not to thrive, it's to survive, right?
Right. Yeah. And 94% of your brain, in fact, is formed when you're not logical. For men, I believe it's the age of 14 to 16. For girls, it's, I think, 12 to 14. So 94% of your thoughts are formed before you're logical.
That's right.
Which means they're all happening from things that happen when you're super young.
Yeah.
And they serve a purpose, but they're lies.
Yeah.
They're not the full substance of who you are. So I think the process of, you hear the term, all these, everybody says you got to become the best version of you. I think it's becoming the original version of you, right? Because God already created us perfect. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Dude, that's huge, man.
It's not becoming another version of you. This is already inside of you. Yeah. It's stripping away all the lies. It's getting honest. It's living in truth. And if you're not living in truth, then God can't be present. And God is the one who creates the transformation, or else you just get little changes. So I think that was also missing for me in all of this. God was more of an umbrella, it was more of a thing I did, but it wasn't something I was. I wasn't trying to embody his mind. I wasn't in my Bible in the morning reading. I wasn't praying. I wasn't journaling. I wasn't really fighting against sin. I wasn't putting up boundaries. It was a convenient thing to call on when I needed help. I still love God. But I hadn't really surrendered my life. And I think that's why I never experienced a real embodiment or transformation. And then when this pain happened, I realized holy crap, I'm going to go another 20, 30, 40 years just with these little changes here and there. Go to a concert, put your hands up, go to a good event, go to a good sermon. But I'm actually the same person.
That's right.
And I really want to see, I want to be who God's called me to be.
Yep.
And that, you know, that whole Ed Milet quote, the more I think about this, probably one of the best freaking quotes ever. That you've heard this story about, like, when you die, his biggest like scare is going up to heaven, and then God introducing you to like the version of you that you could have been.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you think about that, that is, at first I was like, that's a cool story, but I'm like, that is freaking scary. Like, to actually get to heaven and meet God, and for him to point out the version that you could have been, but you weren't because you didn't make different choices.
Yeah.
And that is like really resonating with me. Like, now at this stage in my life, I'm like, time is ticking. You can kind of waste your 20s, even your 30s, but now you're in your 40s. Like, no. You know what I'm saying?
I read, based on my wife and I's age now, and your age too, that we're all the same age, that we were 58% on average lifespan done with life.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And if you think we're going to go until maybe 78, and if you look at, 12 hours or half your life, 12 hours on the clock, like, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. That's right. Bro, so first of all, there's so many things that, like, again, I think critical thinking is a huge strength of yours. Anytime I'm around you, you say things that make me think about things in a different way. And that's one of the greatest gifts you can get from somebody. Yeah. So I love that. So I'm looking forward to spending more time with you. I'd love to bring you back on the show as well in 2025 for sure. Because again, what you're talking about today, because we're as we bring this sucker to close, I'm going to get some final thoughts. But Vince, what you shared today is a book that's being very much written right now. We're all writing the book. However, you're in that part of the book where, like, what happens next?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm
like,
in the thick right now.
Yeah. So I'd love to, 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the road, bring you back and talk about, because like this is going to be big for people to be able to see that growth.
Yeah. And I'd love to, if you don't mind me just saying one more thing.
Yeah.
I was kind of raised and even indoctrinated with the idea that, like, you don't talk about this stuff until you're fully come out of it and, you've emerged. And
same.
And I think there is some wisdom to that. When I first separated, nobody knew for like almost a year. It was under wraps. Like, I was suffering in silence and all that. And it's been 2 years now. I'm still in a lot of pain. Mm-hmm. And I've always been scared to talk about this, because what if I screw up another relationship? And there's this fear of like, well, Vince went through all this pain and, look at this guy's a failure. And I realized, like, there's so many people who are not getting better because they think they're all alone. And that's why I opened up about this. And I do have some family who are like, Vince, like, enough, like, just focus on being a business coach. Don't talk about your personal life. I can't, because this is like the most significant thing. This is the most painful thing. This is the thing that resonates with people more than anything. Yeah. And I'm not preaching that I've like solved this. I'm just letting people know, like, people listening not have to be okay talking about their pain. That is the thing that is going to penetrate the noise more than anything else, and the authentic voice that people are going to resonate with. If you're trying to build an audience, build a brand, like, you have to get ready to be vulnerable and open up. I'm not talking about like what happened late last night when like, but things that were significant in your life that you're going through right now that are shaping the way you see the world. Like, you have to share. People are hurting and people are lonely. So ever since I opened up about this, like, my whole coaching program is like a whole different caliber, a whole different type of person, because people are like, I don't want this to happen to me. I'm experiencing this as well. I need to be around people who actually value family and are trying to figure it out. Like, I don't care that you don't have it figured out. I know, like, I trust you because you're trying to figure it out. So
I love it.
Yeah. I want to encourage people to, again, don't feel like you got to have everything figured out before you start sharing it, because that's a lie. That's what the devil tells you. Wait till you got this. Who are you? Who are you? Yeah. Who do you think you are talking about this stuff? Well, you're not qualified.
Again, I believe that, like, again, you're very good at hitting targets. You hit all the targets in that caused all the stuff you're going through. Now, what you learned is that you weren't the best at setting targets, right? You're hitting all the wrong targets.
Right.
So And you're literally just diving into the community and feeding off the community to learn to be around the best target setters.
Right.
Because once you have their targets, you're going to hit them. That's literally what I'm doing.
Yeah. Redesign. I think everyone's going into the season to redesign, to be honest, 2025. I think a lot of people are going to redesign their business. I have so many friends downsizing, just really trying to
grow, downsizing to grow.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's better before. I have nothing wrong with people who've got big business. We got a guy coming in to speak to us next week, and John Matson, superhuman, and he leapfrogged from 9 million a year to 20 million a year in one year. And sometimes you got to get around those guys that just like kind of shatter limiting beliefs and show you what's possible. But then at the same time, you got to figure out, is that what I want? You got to make sure, like, those guys have a time and place for sure. I think they're like the driver. They drive you down the fairway, get you fired up. But you got to make sure that, like, you put the ball in the right hole.
That's right. That's right. Well, dude, first of all, the courage to come and talk about these things is incredible. And so first, I just want to say thank you.
Thank you for having me, man.
So obviously, thanks for the time.
Absolutely.
But thanks for all the transparency.
Yeah.
That was cool.
It's all I know, man.
That was cool.
The Hitstreak is powered by Rack Financial. When it comes to your credit card merchant processing, Rack Financial is efficient, reliable, and trusted. At the end of the day, when it comes to processing your credit card payments, they make it simple, the way it's supposed to be. Check out Rack Financial.
Well, dude, yeah, look for it. Seriously, I'm gonna be right there with you every step of the way, watching, and hopefully we're gonna do some stuff together in the meantime while we're talking about it. I think we could help a lot of people together.
Yeah. Hey, we figure out how to use my house.
That's right, baby. Let's go. Let's go. Folks, once again, hanging with the CEO of the 7 Figure Fit Pro Mastermind and Del Monte Fitness Services, the Royce. He's known as the Royce of the fitness business coaching. And they hosted the Vince Del Monte Show. Check it out. And folks, my man Vince Del Monte on Instagram, Facebook, and X at Vince Del Monte. Once again, thanks for hanging with me, baby.
Thanks, brother.
Appreciate you, man.
Folks,
thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of The Hitstreak. I am your man, Nick Hyder. God bless.